All right, so today we're diving into note-taking,
Oh, yeah.
which, everybody takes notes.
Right.
But, we're going a little deeper today.
Absolutely.
We've got research, we've got opinions from experts.
Mm-hmm.
We're even going to take a peek into some historical practices.
Cool.
So get ready to rethink how you approach note-taking,
I love that.
because we're going to uncover the strategies that can really level up your note-taking game.
It's interesting how we often think about note-taking as just like a very simple activity, almost a passive activity,
Right.
but it's actually a very dynamic interplay of our cognitive skills,
Right.
attention, encoding, memory, recall, even creativity.
So that's what I think makes this topic so interesting.
Yeah.
Because we're not just talking about, scribbling down some words. We're
Oh.
talking about, really harnessing these cognitive processes to help us learn and remember things.
Absolutely. And when you think about the sheer volume of information that we encounter daily,
Oh my gosh.
articles, meetings, podcasts, even those like fleeting thoughts,
Yeah.
if we don't have a good system for capturing and organizing all of that,
Right.
it's like we're trying to build a knowledge base on shifting sand.
And that brings us to a crucial point. Why bother taking notes in the first place?
Right.
One source cited a stat that I thought was really interesting.
Okay.
We forget something like 33% of new information
Wow.
within just 24 hours
Yeah.
if we don't actively engage with it.
That's right. And it's not just about memorizing facts. It's about processing the information, making connections,
Right.
and turning that knowledge into action.
Exactly.
So whether you're preparing for a big presentation or just trying to understand some complex ideas,
Mhm.
good notes are really that scaffold for your thinking.
Okay, so let's talk about this age-old debate.
Okay.
Handwritten notes versus digital notes.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like everybody's got a strong opinion about this one.
Everybody does, but the research offers some pretty interesting insights into this debate. Studies have shown that the actual physical act of handwriting can really boost memory formation.
Interesting.
And it seems like it's because of the deeper cognitive processing that's required to actually physically write those letters and words down on paper.
Wow.
Creates stronger neural pathways.
So it's not just us, old folks who are nostalgic for pen and paper.
Right.
There's actually a cognitive advantage there.
Exactly.
But now digital notes definitely have their advantages.
Oh, absolutely.
Typing's definitely a lot faster, and you can capture a lot more information in a shorter amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
which can be really crucial in fast-paced environments like conferences or meetings where you're just bombarded with information.
That's right.
So is there a clear winner here?
Well, you know what? The optimal approach might actually be a hybrid approach.
Okay.
Some experts suggest that you take handwritten notes first to get those memory benefits and then digitize them later.
Ah,
To
interesting.
take advantage of the searchability and the shareability of digital platforms.
So you kind of get the best of both worlds.
Exactly.
Okay, so now that we've talked about why we take notes
Mm-hmm.
and kind of the pros and cons of the different ways to take notes,
Right.
let's talk about some actual methods for taking notes.
Yeah.
Because it turns out there's a whole world of strategies out there beyond just writing down bullet points.
Absolutely. And different methods are good for different types of information and learning styles. Some are great for organizing facts,
Okay.
while others are better for brainstorming or mapping out relationships between things.
So let's start with a classic, the Cornell method.
A class.
This method was actually developed by a professor at Cornell University,
Oh, wow.
and it really emphasizes active recall and efficient review,
Right.
which are two pillars of effective learning.
They are.
So what's so great about the Cornell method?
Well, the brilliance is really in its structure. You divide the page into two columns,
Okay.
a wider column on the right for your main notes,
Okay.
and a narrower one on the left for cues or questions or key takeaways.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the bottom of the page, you leave space for a summary of the main ideas.
I see. So you can then use the cues and questions to quiz yourself later
Exactly.
to make sure that you actually remember the information.
Absolutely. And that active retrieval process is really at the heart of creating those long-lasting memories.
And it's a lot more effective than just passively rereading your notes.
Oh, yeah. Way more effective.
Okay, so for those of us who are more visual learners,
Yes.
there's mind mapping.
Love mind mapping.
This method can really transform a bunch of jumbled thoughts into a really clear and organized web of ideas.
And it's incredibly powerful for brainstorming and for seeing the big picture and making connections between ideas that you might not have thought were connected before.
Yeah.
You start with the central topic in the middle of the page, and then you branch out with all of these related ideas,
Right.
using keywords and images and colors to visually represent the information.
So it's almost like creating a map of your thoughts. And it's so cool to think that this method has been around for
Oh,
centuries.
I know.
I mean, Leonardo da Vinci was a big proponent of mind mapping.
Wow.
So these techniques have really stood the test of time.
They really have. It shows they're not just like trendy study hacks or something.
Right.
These are like tried and true tools for thinking and for generating new ideas and making sense of complex information.
Okay, so let's move on to the charting method,
Oh, okay.
which I'll admit I was a little skeptical about at first.
Really?
I didn't really get how charts could be effective for note-taking.
Well, you know, charts can be really powerful,
Okay.
especially when you need to compare and contrast things or analyze data.
Oh.
Think of it as like creating a mini database within your notes.
So if you were comparing, different historical periods, or if you were analyzing research findings,
Right.
a chart can be really helpful.
Absolutely. It gives you a way to really quickly see the key similarities and differences.
Okay, now let's talk about the sentence method. This one is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
You just capture information in complete sentences as you hear it,
Right.
or as you read it.
Right. But that one has some limitations.
Okay.
If you're focused on writing down every detail,
Yeah.
you can end up with these really long and messy notes that are really hard to review later.
It's like you're trying to drink from a fire hose of information.
It really is.
So you're capturing everything,
Yeah.
but you're not necessarily processing it or retaining it.
And that method is good for brainstorming or for jotting down some initial thoughts. But then you really need to rewrite those notes later to make
Yeah.
them more clear and concise.
So it's more like a starting point.
Exactly.
All right. So we've talked about some pretty basic note-taking methods.
We have.
But there are some more advanced strategies out there
Oh, yeah.
that can be particularly useful for professionals who are always dealing with complex information.
And one method that's great for that is flow-based note-taking. And this is all about understanding the relationships between these high-level concepts.
So you're not just capturing isolated facts, you're trying to see the connections,
Yes.
the dependencies, the patterns that drive complex systems.
Exactly. So like engineers and project managers and analysts, people like that.
And there's also the REAP method,
Oh, yeah.
which is specifically designed for active reading.
I love that one.
This one seems really essential for professionals who need to absorb and synthesize a lot of information quickly.
Absolutely. And REAP stands for Read, Encode, Annotate, and Ponder.
Okay.
It's a 4-step process that forces you to engage more deeply with the material.
Okay.
So you're not just passively reading.
I like how it forces you to put the information into your own words when you encode it.
Yeah.
That could be so helpful for understanding and remembering.
And then there's that ponder step
Right.
where you can connect the dots, make inferences,
Right.
draw your own conclusion.
And we have focused question clusters.
Yes.
That's another method.
That's a good one.
That's particularly helpful for professionals who are preparing for certification exams or other high-stakes assessments.
So what you do is you transform all the information you need to learn into a series of very focused questions.
Okay.
So you first identify the key topics and subtopics,
Right.
and then you brainstorm a bunch of questions that are related to each of those topics.
So it's almost like creating a study guide for yourself,
Yeah, exactly.
where you're really zeroing in on the information you need to know.
Yes, and the act of actually creating those questions really forces you to think critically about the material.
Right.
So you're figuring out what's most important.
It's a good way to combat that feeling of overwhelm
It really is.
when you have to learn a massive amount of information.
Yeah.
So by breaking it down into smaller chunks and creating those questions,
Yeah,
it feels a lot more manageable.
exactly.
So I'm curious, have you used any of these advanced methods in your own work?
I have. I've tried them all, actually.
And do you have a favorite?
You know, it's tough to pick a favorite because what works best really depends on the person. It depends on your learning style. It depends on the situation.
Okay.
A lot of times what I like to do is combine different elements of each method to kind of create my own system that works for me.
So it sounds like there's no one right way to take notes.
There really isn't.
It's about finding what works best for you
Exactly.
and experimenting and adapting.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about why we take notes.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about different methods and tools.
Right.
But the real question is, how do we take all this information and apply it to our own lives and work?
The real power of note-taking isn't just about capturing information.
Right.
It's about taking action.
Exactly.
It's about turning that information into knowledge and insights that you can actually use.
And ultimately, that you can use to achieve your goals.
Exactly.
So how do we bridge that gap?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah, how do we make sure that our notes aren't just, digital dust collectors,
Right.
but tools that actually help us learn and be more productive.
That's what we're going to talk about next time.
All right, sounds good.
Mm,
I'm excited to dive into that.
and another thing to consider is all the different note-taking tools that are out there today.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, pen and paper will always be a classic,
Right.
but digital tools can really open up a whole new world of possibilities.
I remember when I first discovered those digital note-taking apps,
Yeah.
it was like a total game changer for me.
Yeah.
Being able to organize my notes by topic,
Right.
search for keywords,
Mm-hmm.
even embed images and audio and video.
Right.
It just made everything so much easier and efficient.
Oh, yeah. That searchability is amazing.
Yeah.
Especially when you have, like, a ton of notes.
Mhm.
You don't have to go flipping through pages anymore.
It's like having a personal assistant for your notes.
It really is. And some of these apps are going way beyond just those basic features.
Oh, yeah.
There are some really innovative platforms out there.
Like what?
Have you heard of Note Decks?
Note decks.
No. So it's designed to be like using physical index cards.
Okay.
Which can be really helpful for organizing information.
I've always liked using index cards
Yeah.
for brainstorming and outlining.
Mm-hmm.
But a digital version sounds even better.
Yeah, it's really cool with Note Decks. You can create these virtual index cards.
Okay.
You can color code them, you can group them into stacks,
Yeah, okay.
and even link them together to create these visual connections between your ideas.
So it's like a combination of mind mapping and index cards.
Exactly.
But with a lot more organizational power.
Exactly. And speaking of organizational powerhouses,
Yeah.
we have to mention Evernote.
Oh, yeah. Evernote's a classic.
It is a classic for a reason.
Right.
It's super versatile. You
Yeah.
can capture pretty much any type of information in there.
Text images,
Yeah.
audio recordings, web pages.
Yep, it's all there.
I love the notebook feature.
Oh, yeah.
You can create all these nested notebooks.
Right?
It's like having a digital filing cabinet.
Exactly. And their tagging system is great, too.
Yeah.
You can really easily cross-reference your notes
Mhm.
and find connections that you might not have seen before.
And then there's the web clipper.
Oh, yeah. That's a game changer.
So helpful for research.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to bookmark a million things anymore.
Right.
Everything's saved right in Evernote.
Exactly. And for those who are really into Microsoft products, there's OneNote.
OneNote, yeah.
It's similar to Evernote in a lot of ways,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more integrated with all those other Microsoft apps.
Yeah, like Word and Excel and PowerPoint.
Exactly. And it's also a really good option if you like taking handwritten notes.
Oh, right, because you can use a stylus with it
Mm-hmm.
on a touchscreen device,
And it can even convert your handwriting to text.
which is really cool.
It is really cool.
So you can search for it later.
And it's great for collaborating with others, too.
Oh, yeah.
If you're working on a team project or something, OneNote's a good option.
So we've talked about some pretty robust and feature-rich note-taking apps.
We have.
But what about something simpler?
Well, if you like simplicity and speed,
Mm-hmm.
Google Keep is a good choice.
Google Keep, yeah.
It's a really lightweight app.
Right.
It's super intuitive, and it syncs across all your devices.
I use it all the time
Me too.
for quick notes and reminders.
Yeah, it's great for capturing those fleeting thoughts.
Exactly. And for Apple users,
Yeah.
there's Apple Notes.
Yep. Comes pre-installed on every Apple device.
Right.
It's got a nice, clean interface.
Mm-hmm.
And it works really well with all the other Apple apps.
And Apple Notes has come a long way.
Oh, yeah.
It's got handwriting recognition now,
Mm-hmm.
image attachments,
Right.
collaborative editing. So it's become a really solid option for Apple users.
It has, so no matter what your preferences are
Right.
or what kind of note-taking style you have,
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely a digital tool out there for you.
And what's really exciting is how these platforms are incorporating artificial intelligence.
Oh, yeah. AI is changing the game.
It really is.
We're starting to see AI-powered tools for automatic transcription,
Right.
summarization,
Hmm.
intelligent search,
Yeah.
even personalized recommendations based on your note-taking habits.
I tried out one of those AI-powered meeting transcription services the other day,
Yeah.
and it was amazing.
Really?
It could transcribe the words, it could tell who was speaking,
Wow.
and it could even highlight the key takeaways.
That's incredible. And that's just the beginning.
Right.
As AI keeps getting better,
Mm.
we're going to see even more innovative tools.
So we can automate all those tedious tasks,
Exactly.
analyze and synthesize information more efficiently,
Mm-hmm.
and really just get more insights from our notes. Imagine a world where your notes are automatically organized and summarized
Wow.
and connected to other relevant resources,
Yeah.
all based on what you're interested in.
That's the future of note-taking.
It is.
And it's not that far off.
It's really cool to think about.
So we've covered the why of note-taking.
Hmm.
You've talked about all these different methods and tools,
Yeah.
and we've even touched on the amazing possibilities of AI.
But the question is, how can you, the listener,
Yeah.
use this information to improve your own note-taking?
How can you turn these insights into something practical?
How can you actually apply this stuff to your own life and work?
Right. It's not just about knowing this stuff. It's about doing something with it.
You know, it's interesting to me that the real power of note-taking isn't just about capturing information.
Right.
It's about engaging with it,
Mm-hmm.
shaping it and turning it into something meaningful and actionable.
Yeah, it's about going beyond just collecting information
Right.
and focusing on how to transform that information into something you can actually use.
Right, into knowledge and insights and action.
Exactly.
So how do we do that? How do we make sure our notes aren't just digital dust collectors,
Right.
but that they're actually tools that drive our learning and our productivity?
One thing that really helped me was the idea of building a note-taking toolbox,
Okay.
a collection of different methods and techniques that you can use in different situations.
I like that analogy. It's like you're a craftsperson with a toolbox,
Exactly.
and you choose the right tool for the job.
Right. And just like a craftsperson gets better with practice,
Hmm.
we need to keep refining our note-taking skills.
So let's talk about the role of practice and feedback.
Okay.
One of the sources we looked at emphasized the importance of reviewing and revising our notes,
Yeah.
not just reading them over,
Right.
but actually engaging with them.
And revising your notes is a great opportunity to add details, connect ideas, even restructure things
Mm-hmm.
to make them more clear and organized.
And it can be really helpful to get feedback from others, a
Again.
colleague, a mentor, a study buddy.
Absolutely.
Sometimes they can spot things that we miss.
They can see the blind spots that we can't see ourselves
Right.
because we're so close to the material.
And it reminds us that learning, even something like note-taking,
Mm-hmm.
can be a collaborative process.
It can, and we're lucky to have so many resources available to us these days.
Oh, yeah.
There are online communities, courses, books,
Mm-hmm.
even AI-powered tools.
That can help us improve our note-taking.
Exactly. We're not alone in this.
But with all this information out there,
Right.
we need to be careful not to get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
We need to know how to filter and prioritize.
It's so easy to fall into that trap of trying to capture everything.
Right, because you're afraid of missing something.
Yeah.
But that just leads to a ton of notes
Right.
that you never actually use.
It's like digital hoarding
It is.
instead of curating a valuable knowledge base.
So how do we become more discerning and intentional with our note-taking?
Well, one thing is to embrace a mindset of selectivity.
Okay.
Don't try to write down every single detail.
Right.
Just focus on the essence, the key takeaways, the aha moments.
And that's where those advanced note-taking methods come in, like the REAP method or focused question clusters,
Yeah.
where they force us to analyze and synthesize information
Exactly.
instead of just passively transcribing it.
And we also need to learn to let go.
Ah.
Just because we took the time to write something down
Mhm.
doesn't mean we need to keep it forever.
So we should regularly go through our notes
Absolutely.
and get rid of anything that's no longer relevant.
It's like tending a garden.
Yeah.
You have to prune the plants to help them grow.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into note-taking,
Okay.
I think the main takeaway is that
Yeah.
note-taking is a powerful tool,
It is.
but it's up to us to make it work for us.
Right.
We need to find a system that works for us.
Mm-hmm.
Experiment, adapt.
And keep practicing.
Exactly.
It's a journey.
It is. And, throughout history,
Yeah.
some of the most brilliant minds have relied on note-taking
Absolutely.
to capture their ideas and build their knowledge.
So imagine what you can achieve
Right.
when you unlock the full potential of your notes.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into note-taking.
It's been fun.
I hope this has given you some new ideas
Yeah.
and inspired you to take your note-taking to the next level.
Happy note-taking, everyone.